السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Welcome to this video where inshallah today I'll be talking a little bit about Surah Nahl, and as the scholars have mentioned, it's known as the Surah of Blessings. And throughout this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions many of the blessings that He has provided for us. And inshallah we'll go through the surah and see some of the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that He has provided us with. And so just as a breakdown of the sections, we'll first cover all the ayahs that mention the blessings. Then we'll talk about one of the ayahs in Surah Nahl, which is known as the most comprehensive verse in the Quran. And then we'll see how throughout the surah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions gratitude and thankfulness, shukr, and how after mentioning all these blessings, what the response of us as believers should be in terms of having shukr for all the blessings and being thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so some of the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in this surah are listed, and inshallah we'll go through the ayahs and each of them one by one. And so the first blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions right in the beginning of this surah of blessings is Tawheed, La ilaha illallah. And so we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the second ayah. He says, يُنَزِّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةَ بِالرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ عَلَى مَنْ يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ أَنْ أَنذِرُوا أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا فَاتَّقُونِ. He sends down the angels with the inspiration, that is revelation, of His command upon whom He wills of His servants, telling them, warn that there is no deity except me, so fear me. And so the scholars mentioned how in this surah of blessings, Surah An-Nam, the first blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions is the blessing of La ilaha illallah, which is it essentially captures the guidance of Islam and singling out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the only deity worthy of worship. And this is somewhat similar to Surah Rahman as well, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts with Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran, Khalaq al-Insan. And so He mentions the teaching of the Quran before even the creation of man. And so we see similarly in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala follows it up with the creation of the human. And so خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِن نُطْفَةٍ فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. He created man from a nutfa, then at once he is a clear adversary. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how after mentioning the blessing of La ilaha illallah, how He created man. And then the next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, over a few ayahs, He mentions cattle and their benefits. So وَالْأَنْعَامَ خَلَقَهَا, and the grazing livestock He has created for you. لَكُمْ فِيهَا دِفْءٌ وَمَنَافِعُ وَمِنْهَا تَأْكُلُونَ. In them is warmth and numerous benefits, and from them you eat. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا جَمَالٌ حِينَ تُرِيحُونَ وَحِينَ تَسْرَحُونَ. And for you in them is the enjoyment of beauty when you bring them in for the evening and when you send them out to pasture. وَتَحْمِلُ أَثْقَالَكُمْ إِلَى بَلَدٍ لَمْ تَكُونُوا بَالِغِيهِ إِلَّا بِشِقِّ الْأَنفُسِ إِنَّ رَبَّكُمْ لَرَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. And they carry your loads to a land you could not have reached except with difficulty to yourselves. Indeed, your Lord is kind and merciful. And then the next one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions is riding animals. وَالْخَيْلَ وَالْبِغَالَ وَالْحَمِيرَ لِتَرْكَبُوهَا وَزِينَةً وَيَخْلُقُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. And He created the horses, mules, and donkeys for you to ride and as adornment. And He creates that which you do not know. And you can see the ayahs that we're going through, they're all in order. And so we'll skip a few ayahs in the middle, but essentially the ayahs themselves are in increasing order. And so the next one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions is rain and crops and thamarat, fruits. هُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً لَكُم مِّنْهُ شَرَابٌ وَمِنْهُ شَجَرٌ فِيهِ تُسِيمُونَ. It is He who sends down rain from the sky, from it is drink, and from it is foliage in which you pasture. ينبت لكم به الزرع والزيتون والنخيل والأعناب ومن كل الثمرات إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يتفكرون. He causes to grow for you thereby the crops, olives, palm trees, grapevines, and of all the fruits. Indeed, in that is a sign for a people who give thought. And then next Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the night, the day, sun, moon, and stars. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ وَالنُّجُومُ مُسَخَّرَاتٌ بِأَمْرِهِ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. And He has subjected for you the night and the day and the sun and the moon and the stars are subjected by His command. Indeed, in that are signs for people who reason. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing to how all these blessings and things that Allah has created for us should cause us to reflect and lead us to remember him and to worship him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the sea and fish and pearls and provision. وهو الذي سخر البحر لتأكلوا منه لحما طريا وتستخرجوا منه حلية تلبسونها وترى الفلك مواخر فيه ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون. And it is he who subjected the sea for you to eat from it tender meat and to extract from it ornaments which you wear. And you see the ships flowing through it, and he subjected that you may seek of his bounty, and perhaps you will be grateful. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions rivers, paths, and landmarks. وَأَلْقَى فِي الْأَرْضِ رَوَاسِيَ أَن تَمِيدَ بِكُمْ وَأَنْهَارًا وَسُبُلًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. And he has cast into the earth firmly set mountains, lest it shift with you, and made rivers and roads that you may be guided. وَعَلَامَاتٍ وَبِالنَّجْمِ هُمْ يَهْتَدُونَ. And landmarks, and by the stars they are also guided. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made these pathways and ways that we can be guided and not get lost. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions cattle and milk. And between these ayahs, you see there's a big jump. And in between, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions like the difference between believers and disbelievers, and how disbelievers respond to all this and are ungrateful and deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his signs, and how believers are thankful and they recognize everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided them with, and how the recompense for the two will be different in the akhirah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues talking about cattle and milk. وَإِنَّ لَكُمْ فِي الْأَنْعَامِ لَعِبْرَةً نُسْقِيكُم مِّمَّا فِي بُطُونِهِ مِن بَيْنِ فَرْثٍ وَدَمٍ لَبَنًا خَالِصًا سَائِغًا لِلشَّارِبِينَ. And indeed for you in grazing livestock is a lesson. We give you drink from what is in their bellies between excretion and blood, pure milk palatable to drinkers. And then next Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions fruits again. وَمِن ثَمَرَاتِ النَّخِيلِ وَالْأَعْنَابِ تتخذون منه سكرا ورزقا حسنا إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يعقلون. And from the fruits of the palm trees and grapevines you take intoxicant and good provision. Indeed, in that is a sign for a people who reason. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions bees and honey, from where the surah gets its name. وأوحى ربك إلى النحل أن اتخذي من الجبال بيوتا ومن الشجر ومما يعرشون ثم كلي من كل الثمرات فاسلكي سبل ربك ذللا يخرج من بطونها شراب مختلف ألوانه فيه شفاء للناس إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يتفكرون. And your Lord inspired to the bee, take for yourself among the mountains houses, that is hives, and among the trees, and in that which they construct. Then eat from all the fruits and follow the ways of your Lord laid down for you. There emerges from their bellies a drink varying in color, in which there is a healing for people. Indeed, in that is a sign for people who give thought. And then next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how he has made spouses and children for us. وَاللَّهُ جَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ بَنِينَ وَحَفَدَةً وَرَزَقَكُم مِّنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ أَفَبِالْبَاطِلِ يُؤْمِنُونَ وَبِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ هُمْ يَكْفُرُونَ. And Allah has made for you yourselves mates, and has made for you from your mates sons and grandchildren, and has provided for you from the good things. Then in falsehood do they believe, and in the favor of Allah they disbelieve. So here we see again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing out how the kuffar respond to all these blessings. And if you look at just all the blessings, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala captures all the major categories of blessings that He has provided us with. And then next Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how He's given us hearing, vision, and hearts. وَاللَّهُ أَخْرَجَكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Again, linking it to how we should be thankful. And Allah has extracted you from the wombs of your mothers, not knowing a thing. And He has made for you hearing and vision and hearts, that is intellect, that perhaps you would be grateful. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how He has granted us with homes. وَاللَّهُ جَعَلَ لَكُم مِّن بُيُوتِكُمْ سَكَنًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّن جُلُودِ الْأَنْعَامِ بُيُوتًا تستخفونها يوم ظعنكم ويوم إقامتكم ومن أصوافها وأوبارها وأشعارها أثاثا ومتاعا إلى حين. And Allah has made for you your homes a place of rest, and made for you from the hides of the animals tents with which you find light on your day of travel and your day of encampment, and from their wool, fur, and hair is furnishing and enjoyment for a time. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how He has made shade and garments for us. وَاللَّهُ جَعَلَ لَكُم مِّمَّا خَلَقَ ظِلَالًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنَ الْجِبَالِ أَكْنَانًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُم سَرَابِيلَ تَقِيكُمُ الْحَرَّ وَسَرَابِيلَ تَقِيكُم بَأْسَكُم كَذَلِكَ يُتِمُّ نِعْمَتَهُ عَلَيْكُمْ لَعَلَّكُم تُسْلِمُونَ. And Allah has made for you that from that which He has created, shadows, that is shade, and has made for you from the mountains shelters, and has made for you garments which protect you from the heat, and garments which protect you from your enemy in battle. Thus does He complete His favor upon you, that you might submit to Him. So again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing how the end result of all these favors is that is taslim, that we submit to Him in Islam as Muslims. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how He has given us the book. وَيَوْمَ نَبْعَثُ فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ شَهِيدًا عَلَيْهِمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَجِئْنَا بِكَ شَهِيدًا عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةً وَبُشْرَى لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ. And mention the day when we will resurrect among every nation a witness over them from themselves. And we will bring you, referring to the Prophet, as a witness over these, that is your nation. And we have sent down to you the book as clarification for all things, and as guidance and mercy and good tidings for the Muslims. And so the next ayah after this is the one that the scholars have mentioned, is the most comprehensive verse. And it's a very short verse that captures almost the entirety of the deen, subhanAllah, in one verse. And that's why you'll hear it a lot in the khutbahs for both Eid and Jummah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ وَإِيتَاءِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَيَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنكَرِ وَالْبَغْيِ يَعِظُكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. Indeed, Allah orders justice and good conduct and giving help to relatives, and forbids immorality and bad conduct and oppression. He admonishes you that perhaps you will be reminded. And so this ayah contains three commands and three prohibitions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands al-adl wal-ihsan, and giving to relatives, wa ita'i dhil qurba. And then He prohibits wa yanha al-fahsha'i wal-munkari wal-baghi. So any kind of immorality, evil, and transgression. And then we see throughout the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how given all these blessings, we should be thankful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَغَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And if you should count the favors of Allah, you could not enumerate them. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ إِذَا مَسَّكُمُ الضُّرُّ فَإِلَيْهِ تَجْأَرُونَ. And whatever you have a favor, it is from Allah. Then when adversity touches you, to Him you cry for help. And then Allah says, يَعْرِفُونَ نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ يُنْكِرُونَهَا وَأَكْثَرُهُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. They recognize the favor of Allah, then they deny it. And most of them are disbelievers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning, so He mentions both, like how the disbelievers deny the favors, and how the believers should be, and they should be grateful. And so now we come to some of the last few ayahs of the surah, and so tying it together, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again reiterates the importance of thankfulness, and gives us the example of Ibrahim alayhi salam, how he was a thankful servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah says, فَكُلُوا مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا وَاشْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ إِيَّاهُ تَعْبُدُونَ. Then eat of what Allah has provided for you, which is lawful and good, and be grateful for the favor of Allah, if it is indeed Him that you worship. And then Allah mentions Ibrahim alayhi salam, Inna Ibrahim kana ummatan qanitan lillahi hanifan wa lam yaku minal mushrikeen. Indeed, Ibrahim was a comprehensive leader, devoutly obedient to Allah, inclining toward truth, and he was not of those who associate others with Allah. Shakiran li an umih ijtabahu wa hadahu ila siratim mustaqim. He was grateful for His favors. He, that is Allah, chose him and guided him to a straight path. And so I pray that we study the surah in more depth, and inshallah apply the example of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and be thankful servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakallah khair for listening. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.